So we're going to walk through some of the management philosophers, the change management philosophers, the change management gurus. What do they say about what to do, how to do it? And then we're going to talk about resistance. So a guy named Bridges, William Bridges, says, anytime you're leading change, there are these three phases. The ending, the letting go, the neutral zone, and the new beginning. And the ending, letting go, literally helping people deal with loss. One of the other change gurus says there is no change without loss. Any of you working with a therapist, the therapist will tell you there is no change without loss. Any of you in your partner career get rid of the jerk? Any of you be successful in dumping the jerk? And a part of you was having a big party about that, but I bet there was something that was a loss. Now there's some people who go, oh no, not for me. But there's always something you miss. There's no change without loss. And so you need to be able to see it. And the neutral zone is that in-between time. When people aren't doing the new things as well as they could, and they're still getting over the things that they used to do. And then the new beginning, see new identity, new energy, new sense of purpose. During the ending, are you actually helping people deal with loss? Do you all know about the Kubler-Ross grief cycle? A woman named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote that any time there's a significant loss, there are phases that you go through. First one is anger. Second one is denial. The third one is bargaining. And the fifth one is acceptance, and I can never remember what's number 4. But there's that whole cycle. So when you're telling people we're no longer going to do things the old way, we're going to do things the new way, are you helping with that? Are you also helping them see that what we used to do is something that is worthy of respect? It was the best we knew how. And there were good things about it that we don't want to lose. And I think we do a bad job of that. We get so excited about the new thing, we unintentionally trash the old. And people feel like they're trashing me, they're trashing my career, they're trashing all the things I learned or did. That's not okay. The neutral zone is where there's creativity. Because where people aren't kind of channeled into this is the way we do the new way, that's where they try stuff. That's where you see the most creativity. And people try on new roles, new ideas, new ways of doing stuff. So you really need to see it as a place to do learning. But then, the new beginning, while there's new energy, new identity, there's also less creativity. Because we're saying, this is the new way of doing it. This is what we expect. This is what we want you to do. And Bridges' work is worthy. He has a book out. It's worthy of seeing, worthy of reading. But the biggest god of change is a guy named John Kotter. He published, forgotten, I think it was 95, 97, in Harvard Business Review, the 8 Steps for Change. He's now spun it into 4 books. I really recommend the Harvard Business Review article. And the rest of them, it sort of depends on how deep you want to dive. He wrote one on, the iceberg is melting for people who like the "who stole my cheese" approach to literature. But he wrote some really significant things. People do not change unless there's pressure. So there needs to be a sense of urgency. And he says that's the first thing you need to figure out. Where's the sense of urgency? If people feel like, oh yeah, we need to change, but it's out there in the future, no sense of urgency. In the US right now, the federal funder changed the rules. And the new rules are very congruent with person-centered practices. And we are using those new rules to create a sense of urgency. You may have to create the sense of urgency internally if it's not coming externally. But unless there's a sense of urgency, you're not going to see change. And then he says, build a guiding coalition. Get the people together who are going to be able to lead that change. Who needs to be there? Who are your key opinion makers? Who are your key leaders? Maybe board members, maybe parents, certainly executive leadership, maybe your union rep. Because if you're talking about change and people, what people do, you need the people who are protecting folks, the union, on board. And getting them on board sooner rather than later makes total sense. One of the more successful efforts that we made in California, we had the union shop steward became a person-centered thinking trainer. And he was explaining some of the change to leadership. But then he says, get a vision. Create clarity about where you're going. And once you have that kind of clarity about where you're going, talk about how you're going to help people know about it. And all the literature says if you think you're communicating enough, you're not. And one of the challenges that you have is most of the people who are leaders are over the age of 50. There was a study at the University of Maryland about students and how they communicate. And they said, email is how we communicate with our parents. So, do you tweet? Do you instant message? Do you do all the different ways? Are you communicating on Facebook? All of those different ways of communicating. And what are you communicating? You want to lead change with stories. Always try to lead change with stories. And that feeds into his next thing. Enable action and create short-term wins. And then figure out how to embed it. And for each one of these, you want to go, that particular piece really resonates for me. I'm going to cherry pick your way through these. And then Kotter's at Harvard, and so is Kantor, Rosabeth Moss Kantor. And she says there's 7 things that you need to pay attention to. And the first one is to create learning posts. Because learning information gets passed person by person. Have you ever played telephone? Well, that happens to a certain degree for the information that's coming to senior management. It goes through 3 or 4 people. You need a way for your guiding coalition to hear directly about what's working and what's not working. Not have it be filtered and transformed by other people's agendas. And then she talks about challenging the prevailing organizational wisdom. She talks about job rotation. For us, I talk about shadowing. If I really want to know what it's like in your agency, I go with somebody for half a shift, full shift. I have learned more folding laundry than almost any other way. Helping somebody clean the kitchen. There's stuff I shouldn't be doing. If you need special medical assistance, I shouldn't be touching you. But I can pick up the stuff that gets discarded. I can help put stuff away. I can be beside the staff person who's doing it and hear what's really happening and see what the work is really like. And if you're like me, well, none of you are as old as me, but years pass since you actually did the work. When I first started with the first agency that I helped build, I was the relief staff because we were tiny. Somebody didn't show up, there I was. So I knew all the jobs, all the stuff there was to do because I was the relief staff. Well, 15 years later, do I still know what it's like? Probably not. Some of it, yeah, but probably not. And then she says, your vision has to also be a compelling aspiration. It has to be so powerful it gets past some of the resistance. It resonates with people. That's why when I was showing that vision, mission, and values this morning, the mission was about we do everything we can for the people that we love. And coalitions. Look for the people who use the services, but also look for the people who understand how the money works. I work with a couple agencies whose idealism just about put them out of business. Because you still have to meet payroll. You still have to have the funding work. But work with people who can go, look, if you use this differently, if you did this in a different way, and use people who understand community, because that's often where it is. And then she says, once you get this really rolling, transfer it to a working group. Kotter says, create that guiding coalition and keep it. She says, you can't sustain it. Transfer it to a working group. And persevere. She's the one that says everything looks like failure in the middle. She also says leading change is like changing tires on your car when you're going 100 kilometers an hour. Or building an airplane while it's flying. And then finally, make everybody a hero. Share the learning that people do. So that's Bridges, Kotter, Candor,